Hey, folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from Embellish Pod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully, I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. And if you can't find me on a platform, send an email at embellishpod@gmail.com and I'll get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's also a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. Today, I'm going to have Dave joining me to talk about the Barbecue and Barrels event that is in Owensboro, Kentucky. It's a really great mix of both bourbon event and barbecue event, which is really important to the city of Owensboro and the western portion of the state. I want to spend a little bit more time here in the future talking about some of these events that people can attend and taste a broader range of spirits that are available to them without having to buy full bottles to begin with. It's an opportunity for people to kind of broaden their palates and whatnot. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. All right. This morning or afternoon, whenever you happen to be consuming this, I have Dave from the Barbecue and Barrels event, and probably something far more than that. But we're specifically talking about Barbecue and Barrels. But Dave, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you guys are working on.
Sure. Like John said, my name is Dave Kirk, and I'm in charge of destination management for Visit Owensboro. We are the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Owensboro, Davis County. And I guess I'll kind of just start with, Owensboro is an events city, right? That's what we thrive on. We're not on 64 or on 65. We're right off both of them. So the way that we do tourism business is by attracting events, whether that be conventions, and we host a lot of them. We have a world-class convention center right on our water, 100 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows. It's spectacular, and actually the home of the bourbon tasting portion of Barbecue and Barrels. And then sports tournaments, Owensboro. Anytime you talk to somebody from the central part of the state, Lexington, Louisville, a lot of times, especially years ago, if you went to Owensboro, you went here for a sports tournament. You probably played baseball or softball in Owensboro. We have an abundance of flat land. And so we have really nice facilities where people come to play sports of all variety. Heck, I just heard of another tournament. It's going to be a bike racing tournament. I mean, we pickleball, bike, we'll try anything here in Owensboro. And then, of course, our convention center also serves as our sports facility where we have a variety of volleyball, futsal, all kinds of stuff like that, while our new indoor sports facility is being built. Most of our tourism relies in the downtown corridor. 2008, I think our city commission realized, hey, we've got water that runs right through our downtown. Maybe we should build stuff around it. And that's what they did. They invested a lot of public dollars into that. An interesting time as the economy had just collapsed in 2008. And here in Owensboro, our city leaders thought, let's raise the insurance premium tax on everyone. And wasn't popular then, actually even made the New York Times about because obviously times were so tough. What's this city doing? Who are these people? And the hope was, investing in the downtown with money essentially would draw a lot of private money in. So people that wanted to build hotels and restaurants and bars and breweries and wine shops, that sort of thing, boutiques. And that's exactly what happened. It exploded. The downtown, I grew up here, and you didn't go downtown when I was a kid. There's just nothing here. There was the famous bistro. There was Colby's, and then a bunch of attorney offices and closed down, shuttered offices, essentially. And with that investment, it just kind of transformed everything. It made Owensboro cool again. And so with that, we've seen an opportunity to really rebrand ourselves. Like I said, we kind of call ourselves Kentucky's festival city, just because if there is a topic or a festival, I guarantee we probably have it of some variety. Whether you want to go, agriculture with our, the Reed's Orchard and Trunnels that kind of outline the city, or you want to go with something, this weekend, for example, we've got a Southern Gospel show at our Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame for 2 days. Across the street of the convention center, we have the Fear Expo, where we have, Hell's a Poppin', band. So at the same time, you could see a kind of a heavy metal band, and then you could go get your gospel on. So, we try to have a wide variety for people to come and enjoy our city, because again, we have to give reasons for people to come here. We brand ourselves as the bluegrass music capital of the world because we are. We have the only Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and museum in the world. Bluegrass was literally invented down the road in Rosine, Kentucky, in Ohio County. And so we have that. We just opened a Jerry Garcia exhibit exploring Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead's connection to bluegrass that will run for 2 years. It's been spectacular. We've had people from literally all over the world in the last 3 weeks since its opening that have come and seen it. Uh, so we're all about the bluegrass. Bourbon. A lot of people don't know this. So until Prohibition, there were two players in the bourbon industry. There were Louisville and there was Owensboro. Those two cities. That's where all your bourbon came from. Louisville for obvious reasons. It's the biggest city, and Owensboro because of the water, the river, the agricultural land that you had all of this great grain growing. And then Prohibition happened, and for some reason, Owensboro didn't get any of the medicinal licenses. Didn't get any of those, and so the distilleries essentially, all shut down. Unfortunately, there were over 20 distilleries in Owensboro, Kentucky, pre-Prohibition. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's always been Bardstown. No, no, pre-Prohibition, it was Owensboro, and we had kind of a dark time in bourbon. 1991-ish, I believe, early 90s was the last time the Medley Distillery, which is current Green River, made anything bourbon related. And so we kind of went through this. There was nothing going on with bourbon. And then fortunate for us in the mid 2000s, a company came in and saw that distillery, which was in ruins. I mean, they had ransacked this thing, the barrels, the giant oak, was it oak? I can't remember exactly, but Maker's Mark essentially bought a lot of the stuff out of the distillery and used it to repurpose kind of their bins where they were cooking and letting their mash build, and so there was nothing going on. And then, like I said, this company came in, Terrasentia, and saw that there could be bourbon here again, and went through several phases with OZ Tyler to wait for their product to be done, and then Green River came back on board a couple of years ago. And man, I'm sure glad they did, because they've opened a lot of doors to the bourbon world for Owensboro again. And we'll get more into bourbon here in a sec, I'm sure. But then, of course, barbecue. Owensboro and in Western Kentucky, we all have our own kind of style of that hickory smoke and oak and the vinegar-based sauce typically, and then this stuff called mutton. The people are like, "What is mutton?" Well, it's old sheep. And so why do we have mutton? Well, because Owensboro specifically was a sheep crossing. People would go down the Ohio River, and the farmers would take their sheep down there. And when they weren't producing wool anymore, and when wool came out of favor because people had switched to cotton, they would barbecue and eat their sheep. And so that's where mutton came to be. So Owensboro is uniquely authentic. What we're known for tourism is what we are. There is no Disney World here. There is no something we just built, to have a tourism. It literally is our roots. Now going into barbecue and barrels, if you want to shift there, John, going into what that event's all about. So Owensboro has had a barbecue festival, like I said, since the 70s, I think is when it was started, and it was started because they wanted Owensboro is a very Catholic community. They wanted all these church parishes, as we call them Catholic parishes, to have fundraisers for their schools and for their parish. And so the Chamber of Commerce in the 70s brought everybody together, a guy named David Atkinson, who went on to be the Kentucky Chamber leader forever. They essentially asked everybody to come downtown because they all had these church picnics already at their parishes. Mm-hmm. They wanted to bring all this downtown in one central location where you could try all of these parishes barbecue, in addition to have Old Hickory and Moonlight and Old South down here, so you could try a bunch of different barbecue. So that was Owensboro. That was what we were known for so long, and over time, a lot of those parishes had kind of dropped out because trying to get somebody to come downtown and cook for like 4 days, it's a lot of work. And some of those older guys that have been doing it forever, are like, we're getting older, and then the younger generation, in some cases weren't stepping up. And that's not true for all the parishes, but a lot of them, you went from like 15 parishes cooking for this thing down to as low as like 3. And that was as recent as like 2018, 2019. And with Green River coming on board with bourbon, myself with Visit Owensboro and the city of Owensboro got together, their public events department specifically, and we thought, how do we revamp this thing? It's too good, but it needs to be reinvented so that it doesn't die. And so we thought, well, with Green River coming on board, there is really no big bourbon thing west of Louisville. You've got Bardstown, and with their festival they've had for years. That's amazing, and you've got all this bourbon stuff going on in Louisville. But what about Western Kentucky? Why don't we have a bourbon? We've got these distilleries, and we've got several. You being down there in Murray that have kind of popped up, which is amazing. Why don't we have a bourbon festival? We tied into barbecue. And so that's what we did. We invented barbecue in barrels. We started talking about it back in 2018, 2019. Then COVID happens in 20, and we're like, well, that was the final blow to festivals because it did. It hurt so many, and we thought, let's do this right. Let's roll out some smaller versions of barbecue. And then in 2023, we reeled in Seth Thompson with the Bourbon Review. Has done the Bourbon Classic now in Louisville for 10 years. I've gotten to know him through the marketing aspect, and said, "Hey Seth, how about you bring some bourbon to Owensboro?" And he's got family ties. He's got family ties to Owensboro, and he said, "I'm in." And so he started recruiting distilleries for this new, festival that we have down here in Owensboro, and they just kept signing on board. We had a little bit of luck. A lot of people might not know this, but Brent Elliott, who's the master distiller, who's just killed it at Four Roses. I mean, what they're doing right now is incredible. To his credit, he's from Owensboro, Kentucky, and so we got him on board to talk about, yeah, we can do this back in Owensboro. And last year, in our first year, we had 36 distilleries on board. We set the tickets for 500, and I'm specifically talking about the bourbon tasting event, which happens at the Owensboro Convention Center. We got him on board, and we sold out in the first year. We had barbecue going on all around the street, so people will feel like they're almost in a different event when they step out of the convention center, because you just have barbecue vendors everywhere you look. But we also have barbecue within the convention center for the ticket event, so it's like a bourbon and barbecue tasting, because barbecue and bourbon go really well together. And so it's a perfect marriage. And so for barbecue and barrels, we're really happy with the success of it. We offer classes from 2 to 3, where we have 3 different classes that you can pick from. And then from 3 to 4 is the VIP hour, a little more expensive ticket. But again, you get these special pours from these distilleries that you're not going to see. A lot of single barrel picks, that sort of thing. And then you get barbecue pairing. This year we'll be featuring Old South barbecue. So there's all kinds of great food for people to try as they're eating. And then from 4 to 6, you have general admission, which is still at $65 is a great value. I mean, you're going to have this year, I think so far we've got about 35 distilleries on board with a month out. So we'll add more. And so for $65, you get to taste bourbon from all these different places. Oh, and by the way, there's also barbecue right when the event ends, or if maybe you'd like to enjoy it before. There's a car show that morning that's all these Prohibition style cars that were bourbon runners back in those days, where they were running from the law. We've got all kinds of cars centered around that. And then you leave the bourbon tasting event, and that night there's a free concert from Chris Jansen, who's one of the top country artists in the world. So, and that's free. So it's just a weekend. You got to come here and experience what we're going to have to offer.
Now, you may have said it in there, but I don't think so. When did you give the date on this?
Okay, Mother's Day weekend. So that'd be May 10th and 11th. The event starts actually on, I guess, is it the 9th? Hang on, let me make sure. Is that Thursday? I want to make sure and get the right date. Yeah, the 9th. So essentially we had, our events last year, and we've added a little bit more this year. We didn't want to grow too fast, because what I found in my experience as an event person, you want to get it right the first time, and then you add. You don't have to have everything at once. You want to make sure the distilleries are happy being here. You want to make sure the barbecue vendors sell out, which all that happens. So it actually kicks off on May 9th with a very special dinner called Smoke and Oak. And that is at Laura Seafood and Grill. It's right there at the Hampton in downtown Owensboro. Really nice steak and seafood restaurant. The Weller, and it's featuring Weller products. So the price point is going to be a little high, but when you see what you're getting, if you're a bourbon person, you're going to go, wow, that might be the best deal ever. $350, that includes your tip, and you get to try the entire Weller lineup, and that's including William LaRue Weller, which, as you know, John, you can go to a bar right now, and if you order a tasting of William LaRue Weller, it's probably going to be about $150, okay? And you're going to get to try the entire Weller lineup and have a paired dinner with that will all have smoke to it, barbecue themed. So you do that on Thursday. There's still a couple tickets, and I just mean a couple because they limited this because there's only so much of those really rare Weller bourbons to go around, as you well know. Very intimate kind of dinner. You do that Thursday. On Friday, Green River Distilling Company has a cocktail and dinner pairing. There's still some tickets left for that too, but not many are left. So again, if you want to do these things, I know we're a month out, but literally all of these tickets are almost gone other than general admission. So Green River Distilling Company, it's at the distillery. They will pair different cocktails featuring their bourbon with different dishes from a local chef named Matt Weaver. Went last year, sold out event, unbelievable. So highly encourage people to come in early, come in that Friday, get your hotel room and enjoy that. Saturday is the main kind of event, right? So you have all the barbecue stuff that starts at noon on Friday downtown, where you have all these barbecue vendors. You have the dinner on Friday night at Green River, and then on Saturday you'll have a car show featuring all of these again prohibition style cars from about 10 to 2 on Saturday. Also, there's the backyard cook-off, so you'll have all kinds of samples along the river where guys and gals are smoking for an individual competition. You go over right on the riverfront, there's a craft vendor fair going on. There's a carnival going on over here for kids. And then the bourbon stuff starts on Saturday in the convention center at 2 o'clock with classes, 3 o'clock VIP, and then, like I said, 4 to 6 are just general tastings. And then you come outside and, you have, like I said, a world famous country artist. So it's a lot. It's a lot that weekend. But again, we wanted to offer something kind of for everyone to try. Maybe bourbon's not your thing. You and I were kind of talking prior to the podcast starting. Okay, I'm not a bourbon fan. Do I still want to come to Owensboro that weekend? Well, listen, if you don't like barbecue and you don't like bourbon and you don't like crafts and you don't like free music, then yeah, maybe you shouldn't come that weekend. But I guarantee you, most people like at least one of those four things, and so it's a marriage of them all in Owensboro that weekend.
Yeah, and one thing to sort of add to this, and this is going way back to the beginning here. I think Owensboro, the glow up of the downtown area, or the riverfront area, is possibly one of the best in the state that has happened in the last 20 years. And I say that as I've lived in Murray for almost the entirety of my 43 years at this point. And so we're very familiar with Owensboro. My brother lived there for a while. I have a bunch of college friends that were from Owensboro. I've spent a good amount of time there. And you're exactly right. After the state of Kentucky experiences the death of the executive ends, all of those that were around the state.
Yeah, we blew it up in 2008. Literally blew the
Yeah,
building.
I mean, Paducah did the same thing. If I remember, there was an executive inn in Louisville at one point in time, possibly.
Yes, yeah.
And so once those kind of went away, it was this, deserted wasteland. And you guys did a lot of work to reinvigorate that downtown area. And it's, like I said, one of the best that I've seen, regardless, for all family types. And I found myself that last year for an event, right? Because Owensboro is the event city, right? There was a dance competition, and you said this cocktail and pairing is in the restaurant that's in the Hampton Inn. And I want to point that out specifically because I travel for work. Hampton Inns are perfectly fine hotels, but you usually don't find a really nice hotel in one. And I can attest to the smoke and oak that is there doesn't really fit with what you might think if you've been to a Hampton Inn before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
Not too many Hampton Inns have a 4-star restaurant in them as that does with Lure Seafood and Grill. Not to quote too many people, but a lot of people are familiar with Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio. He's a big personality. Whether you like him or hate him, he's a big personality, and he calls Owensboro's Hampton Inn the nicest Hampton Inn in America, and it is. I mean, it's spectacular. I mean, and essentially the reason for that is we had a local developer that essentially, when he developed that, he's from Owensboro, a wonderful man named Malcolm Bryant. He wanted to have, it's his hometown. If he's going to build a hotel in his hometown, he's going to build the nicest one in America, and that's what he did. And to that fact, the Holiday Inn, which is on the other side of the convention center, is the nicest Holiday Inns in America. And again, the local developer was like, I see you, and I'm going to build, and so, we've got Owensboro locals here really are into local, if that makes sense. They really invest in their community and wants what's best for where they live. And we've seen that with those two hotels. But yeah, we have some people, especially kind of bougie travel writers that come in. They're like, "You're going to put me at the Hampton," and I'm like, "Listen, you'll see."
Just stay there and be okay. You'll be fine, and it's not
Yeah,
a
and there's
you know
they're
the
like, "What?"
and that's not to downplay. Hamptons are perfectly fine hotels, but
Yeah, they're
this
good. They're great
is a
offers.
different
Yeah,
kind of thing, and you gotta set that container, especially for people who do travel.
yeah,
They've spent some time in a Hampton in different places. The Hampton off of the exit in Dalton, Georgia, is not the same as the Hampton in Owensboro, Kentucky. They're two very, very different creatures. One's a place to sleep, and one's a place to experience. And that was just I needed to touch back on that specifically because it
great.
was a little bit different. Um, and we did talk about this online. A lot of whiskey events are very geared towards um, people like me, the average white guy who is really, really into whiskey in North America. And there's not a great opportunity for us to bring our families along who might not be, either old enough to be considering whiskey, or are, significant others who could care less about it. But having the ability to have whiskey or concerts or car shows or whatever, you kind of broaden that um, palette of things that you can experience, which was what was interesting about it for me. And I'll say I've got a little bit of regret. I wanted to reach out to you guys last year, but my calendar was too full and I couldn't get there in time. So I wanted to do this. Um, you've mentioned a couple times during the early portions of at least the whiskey part, and we will get back to the barbecue part because that's just as important, right? As a Western Kentucky guy, barbecue is very important. You've got some educational sessions. Can you tell me a little bit about what
Sure.
that is?
Yeah, so one of the options for tickets as an add-on, if you will, because you do have to have a general admission or a VIP ticket to do a class, just because again they are so limited. You know, when we added these classes, we wanted to have free, and we wanted to keep them intimate, right? We wanted people, if you're going to take a class, I mean, I think we set it at like 25 people per class because we want you to get to have that one-on-one time with the person teaching that. We didn't want it to feel like a massive, like I'm not going to get to ask my questions. We want it to be an interactive experience, and that's kind of how we set them up. So you have three options, and I will tell you, most of them are more than half sold. So literally, there are probably less than 10 tickets for each class left, and we're a month out. So if you do want to come to Barbecue and Barrels and you want to take a class, like now would be the time to go purchase that ticket. And the price, I think we set it at like 25 bucks. And so it's
Mhm.
very affordable. The three options, you've got one with Green River, and you get to go see Karen Wells, who's the brand, one of the brand ambassadors for Green River. I think that's her exact. I don't. There's so many titles in bourbon, but she's the face. Like when you
Yeah.
go to this Green River, you think of Karen, and she's amazing, and she knows so much about it. And so she has a tasting event where you're going to get to go through Green River, the profile, and all of that. And then one of her counterparts, because obviously the Bardstown Bourbon Company, bought out Green River a couple of years ago, and so they've really mixed very, very well, right? Bardstown does this like fancy, like finish. Look at me, I'm shiny and new. And Green River is that old school DSP 10. I've been around longer than any of you, and we do it the old fashioned way. When you get on Green River's campus, you felt like you've stepped into the 1800s, which is awesome. You see the grain trucks and you see the clay tile rick houses. Nobody has a clay tile rick house. If they have brick, that's a miracle, right? These are clay
Mhm.
tile rick houses that are over 100 years old, right? And so with Bardstown, they're also going to offer a class. I think her name's Jasmine. I don't know if I'd have to go look, but she is one of the ambassadors for them and just does an amazing job about Bardstown and what they've brought to the table because they're doing stuff totally different that's equally amazing. And their campus there in Bardstown, I mean, it's second to none. I mean, it is a world class. I don't know if you've been there, John, but it is a world class. And so she'll be offering a class as well. And then just announced we had this up as the third class as the mystery class for a little bit. And people were asking
Mhm.
questions. What is the mystery class? And we did that because we were wanting to shoot, for the stars and try to get somebody in here that you don't normally get to interact with, especially, 1 on 25. And so, that takes a little bit of time when you're going with some of those bigger
Mhm.
brands to try to get somebody big. And my friends at Heaven Hill, man, they knocked it out of the park. We've got Jody coming in. He essentially handles, I don't want to make sure I get this right, the Louisville operation down there in Evan Williams. So he is an artisanal distiller. So
Mhm.
small distilling process. And you're literally going to get to sit in the room with Jody, who's one of the nicest people. He came down last year, didn't teach a class, just wanted to see what it was all about. And the interaction I got to, I mean, again, these distillers, whether it's a head distiller, master distiller, whatever, like to get to have this interaction with them, like you don't get to do that. And again, he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet and knows his stuff. And so you get to sit there in a room with Jody as he's going through different taste profiles with Evan Williams. I mean, it's for $25. I mean, like, again, you're, with no knock to any other bourbon festival, but at that price point, like you just don't normally get to do that. And so those are the three classes that we're offering, all very unique experiences. But again, if you want to get into one of those classes, like I said, I think we limit it to like 25 people per class. So you better go ahead and sign up and do that if you want to.
Yeah, and you said a couple things in there that are, I think, really kind of key to echo on. Number one, access like this can happen, but it's usually a premium. It's usually these one-off events that cost far more than $25 a person to attend. It's a distiller's dinner, or it's something along that lines. I've had the opportunity to be at a Green River tasting with your host, and I will say they're always fantastic. They're fun, and she's the one that actually taught me about the coin game. I don't know if you've got the coin game with the
Shoot
Green
the
River
shoot.
bottle.
You got to shoot the shoot. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even like. I had the bottles for a long time before I knew that was a thing. Right,
Yeah.
I
Shoot
had the
the
coin and I had the bottle, and I got on it was some friends and I were doing a tasting online, and she was like, "Yeah, there's a game," and I was like, "That now you've just you've occupied my mind and my palate at the same time." And you're exactly right. Green River and Bardstown Bourbon Company make a fantastic pairing, and the fact that one is the very traditional historical bourbon brand, the experience of that, and the other is very much and what they were going for, that West Coast vineyard upscale experience, which is what they've built there, and it's exactly that. And yes, I've been to both places a handful of times,
Yeah.
and they're both equally worth a visit. And that's part of the reason why I want to have these conversations. That there's a lot of things that are happening that are west of the Bardstown, Elizabethtown triangle that exists from there to Louisville and Lexington, that are interesting around whiskey and bourbon in Kentucky. Right, we've got other brands down here. We've got a lot of things that are happening, and this is a great opportunity to kind of champion those things. I guess you said earlier that last year you had capped attendance for the bourbon portion of the event. Did you cap it again this year, or is it more of a wide open?
No, we capped it again this year because again, what we don't want to be greedy, right? Like we have a very affordable ticket prices. I guarantee if you look at our ticket prices compared to everyone else, we're going to be cheaper. And
Mhm,
the reason for that is A, we're new, so you can't get greedy. But B, like we just want to provide an experience that is affordable to people. Like
mhm,
uh, I don't know if you've been to the grocery lately, but you go to the grocery, $100, and it's like I didn't get anything. And so
mhm,
we want to be able to provide an experience for everybody, right? We have some special things you can do while you're here. Like I said, that smoke and oak dinner at Lure is expensive, but again, if you're a bourbon connoisseur, you're looking at $350 going, wait a sec, I taste the whole Weller lineup. I get to also have an amazing meal with this. I mean, we're talking
mhm,
like lobster risotto. Like we're not talking about like hamburgers. We're talking about legit stuff. And you get an education from a lady named Melissa. And Melissa works for Well, she works for the Zazarat Company. And
mhm,
essentially she has a title that like I would envy one day. She's a food scientist. And she's going
mhm,
to sit there and talk to you about what goes into making these profiles and the science behind it. I mean, pretty much every bottle that comes through there, like she has to taste to make sure that it matches their product. I mean, it's incredible. So you get education there too. But going back to capping it, last year we capped it at 500. We didn't know what to expect. It's our first time doing anything bourbon. Like if we could get a 50% attendance the first year, fantastic. And then it sold out. VIPs sold out within a week.
mhm,
General admission sold out literally kind of the night before the event because with your general admission tickets, you get a lot of last second. Ooh, I don't want to miss out, or my plans changed. I can now go, and so
mhm.
we still have some of those left. VIP this year sold out in less than 24 hours. Okay, we had some packages we did. and we reserved some VIPs in there, and the packages did pretty well. But the packages that didn't sell, we re-released those VIP tickets, and so there were only like 30. Guess
Mhm.
what? There are 5 VIP tickets left for this whole thing right now. 5. That's it. There are no more. There are no more re-releases. Like by the time this airs, like they might be gone. To be honest with you,
Mhm.
because again, there's only 5 left. And then we do have general admission, so there's still a way to get in the door. But also this year, to your point, some people don't like bourbon, or some people want to see it but don't want to taste it. So this year we added a companion ticket.
Mhm.
20 bucks, you get to go up with everybody else. Now, we're going to put a bracelet on you that says don't serve this person bourbon, because that's not fair to the people that bought tickets.
Right.
But there still will be a cash bar there. So you could still, purchase a drink or purchase food. There'll be food to be purchased as well. But a lot of that's for people that say, okay, I want to see what this is all about, but I really don't consider myself a bourbon person. And
Mhm.
so, we wanted to offer that for people this year. And I had no idea how I was going to go. And we've sold, I think, about 30 tickets of just people that just, we call it the companion thing. Either they're a wife that wants to go with their husband, or maybe they're a husband that wants to go with their wife. There's a lot of
Mhm.
women out there, which is fantastic. Or maybe they're just somebody that's just curious. What's this about? So, I think it's like 20 bucks. You get in, you get to see what it's all about. Again, you can't taste anything from the distilleries, but you can still buy a drink if you want from the bars that we'll have out there.
Now, I'm gonna ask you a question. Maybe you have an answer to this. Maybe you don't. Let's just say I decide to attend and I bring my spouse with me, and she gets a companion ticket. And once she gets inside, she says, "You know what? I think I do want to. If there's any general admission left day of, is there an opportunity to convert her, or
Yeah,
is she
yeah,
stuck with that, or does she buy another one?"
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they get FOMO and they come in there and we've got a couple
Mhm.
spots left, which I don't know. We only added 200 tickets in this year from the 5, so we
Mhm.
only have 700, because again, we want this to be an intimate experience for everybody. I don't want to have thousands and thousands of people in there,
Right.
because that means less time with getting to interact with the distilleries, and it's great for the distilleries too, because this is them getting to interact with customers, future customers, and so you know
Mhm.
we could have more, which is why we had a 200, but we never want this to get so it feels like I'm in line forever. I don't get to taste anything. Like this was, we want this to be a good value ticket for people. But yeah, if there's a couple left, and I won't know that until we get closer. Again, we're a month out, and we've sold a lot of tickets already. So
Mhm.
we could convert them for sure.
Yeah. So, and then maybe and I know you've said it before. The general admission ticket costs.
65 bucks. 65 bucks. You're going to get to taste, I think, like I said, I think we have 35 distilleries signed up so far. I would expect that number to grow closer to 40.
So let's just say it doesn't grow anymore. 35 distilleries for $65. You have the opportunity. I don't know whether there's anywhere else that you can go and get an opportunity to taste that many brands for $2 a pour effectively. Now, I would imagine there's not anybody that's going to make it through all 35 brands
And we don't
because
encourage
of the.
that. I want to be
Yeah,
clear.
no, no, I was like,
You know,
if you
samples.
do, unless you're a swish
Yeah.
and spit kind of person, where you bring a little
Well,
spit
and
cup and
we
you put
do.
it up.
When you walk in, and I'll just kind of talk a little bit through what it looks like when
Mhm.
you walk into the convention. First off, what the distilleries loved about the convention center, and it is world class, is you're on the second floor, floor to ceiling windows. You're looking through the downtown, the Ohio River, and so you don't have to worry about rain. Right? This is one of
Mhm.
those whiskey things that weather doesn't matter. Now, for the barbecue portion outside, I'm
That's a
hoping
bigger
for
deal, yeah.
right? But for the bourbon side of it, you can purchase this ticket and know you don't have to deal with the weather. We're inside. There are plenty of air conditioned bathrooms. I know that sounds basic, but it's really
No,
nice.
I've been to a lot of beer festivals and whiskey festivals and any type of festival.
Yeah,
An air conditioned bathroom can make the difference enough so that if you look and so you think of Kentucky Bourbon Festival for their VIP section, they bring in trailers that are air conditioned portable
yeah,
bathrooms. That's how big of a deal it is because if you're paying a premium, they want to have access to it, and that's just a part of the general admission here. So, this is the point.
yeah. So it's all indoors. We have dump stations, we have water stations, and new this year, because again, we take feedback from the attendees and the sellers. We'll have wherever there's a water and dump station, we'll have pretzel stations, because
Mhm.
if you're not eating a whole lot, you want to have something to help soak up that alcohol. Because again, you're going to
Uh-huh.
get to try a lot of bourbon. But to that note, they are small samples, and we give everybody a little tasting card. Okay, so when
Mhm.
you get in there, this is last year's, of course, so we'll need to update this. But it's a little punch card that we ask the distilleries. Essentially, if somebody has tried their product, mark it off,
Mhm.
right? We don't want people coming back for seconds and thirds, and that's why we keep the time where it is. Some people are
Mhm.
like, "Hey, let's have this be longer." No, nobody needs to drink bourbon for more than 3 hours. You don't need to do that. And if you did, like again, you leave the bourbon tasting, and there are bars and all that outside on the streets during the
Mhm.
barbecue as well. I know Castle and Key, for example, they're going to have a whole mobile trailer set up outside where you could purchase cocktails. So, we're not saying like you're done, we're cutting you off here, but we do want people to be responsible. And I think most
Mhm.
bourbon people are. I think you get a couple people that, maybe overserve themselves a little too much, but this is a lifestyle experience, right? This is not a I'm going to go and drink all I can drink. And we really didn't see that last year. And again, I think that's
Yeah.
just a testament to a bourbon connoisseur. They respect the craft, they respect the spirit, and they enjoy it for what it is, not for how it makes them feel. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. And I was lucky enough to be on a media pass at Kentucky Bourbon Festival last year, and that was one of the things that I noted was there's not a ton of people that walk away from these events like you might expect people to walk away from these events.
Yeah,
And honestly, they're not looking to try to have 35. But if you go into any bar in the United States, the odds of you getting a half ounce pour for $5, and so now we're getting into some math. Do I need to try 10 whiskeys or whatever? Um, that's what these things are always about for me, is the opportunity to try things that I haven't tried before, in a cost effective way, and interact with the people at the booth, and having distilleries on site, as opposed to, some beer festivals they'll have, the festival, the people who host the festival have the people that are doing the pours of the beer, and so they don't really know anything about it. But having, distilleries on hand is a significant difference, especially for people that are trying to explore. But bourbon is not the only purpose of this event, so it makes sense to time box it and say, okay, now it's time to go out and experience the rest of the event. I assume you're putting as much, if not more, effort into the rest of the event as you are this particular bourbon portion. So it might make a good chance to um, pivot to that. Let's talk about the barbecue portion of this festival. And barbecue has been a big thing, in the state of Kentucky and anywhere in this, South or pseudo South, for a very, very long time. What makes this particular barbecue festival special? And I know you've already touched on this a little bit, but and I'm going to couch that and saying, if you know anything about Owensboro barbecue, there's the Old Hickory people and there's Moonlight people,
they
right?
literally fight each other. Like
Exactly.
anytime we do a post about them, I mean, it is an absolute culture war, and I love it. I'm here for it, because people are so passionate about those two. But again, don't sleep on Old South. Old South
Yeah.
is the new kid in town, which opened in the '90s. Okay, so it's
Right.
not like it's. And then we actually have Smokehouse now at Brewbridge. So one of our craft breweries, they launched a barbecue thing where they're doing more like Texas, Carolina brisket. They're not doing mutton like the other ones, or burgoo or anything like that. It's called burgoo, by the way. A lot of people burgoo. No, it's burgoo. That's what it is. It's cute when they try to do it in Lexington and Louisville, but it's called burgoo. Okay. But anyways, I say that to say barbecue is everything here. I mean, it's you have three world famous restaurants here, but that's not what the barbecue festival is known for. It's known for these church cooking teams. I mean, that is what
Mhm.
makes it legendary. The big kettles of burgoo and the smoke just fills downtown as they cook, and it's a serious matter. It's a there's always the backyard cook off. I mean, there'll probably be 40 or 50 teams in that, and teams will travel from as far away as Texas for that thing because they know if you win a food award for barbecue in Owensboro, it's legit. And
Mhm.
so that's what I think is kind of neat is like, you know, for your family, for example, let's say you want to go do the bourbon thing. Well, that's fine. You can go do the bourbon thing. And while you're doing that, the rest of your family are out enjoying the craft fair. They're out enjoying the car show. They're enjoying the barbecue. They're enjoying all the live music throughout downtown. And then you all meet up at the concert at the end, which is free. So, it is a unique kind of lifestyle event where you have all these other options. With barbecue, I mean, there's so many different ways you can take that, right? There'll be people that will have mutton sandwiches, they'll have chopped pork, they'll have chicken, they'll have burgoo, but then you're gonna have people that have brisket nachos, and there might be a dessert or two out there that involves smoking something. It's such a unique way that people can put their own spin on it. And again, the festival, that portion of it started in the 70s.
Mhm.
And Old Hickory is over 100 years old. Moonlight literally ships all over the world. When you ask, former President Bill Clinton what his favorite barbecue restaurant is, and he's from Arkansas, he
Yep.
goes, he's been to Moonlight probably 10 times. I mean, literally, there are pictures on the wall that So it's personal here when it comes to
It,
barbecue. I guess I'm saying.
it's enough to almost develop a Hatfields and McCoys vibe for sure. Barbecue in Owensboro specifically, and I can't imagine a better way to step out of a whiskey event than to step into a barbecue event,
Lots
right?
of
Just
small.
in the smell and the flavor and all of those things. And you said this a second ago, so there's a lot of people that don't know what burgoo is. So what is it?
Do you want the traditional old school story or what it is now? I'll tell you both. Okay. So the way that burgoo started, this is not what it is now. I want to say that very, 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 distinctly. The way that burgoo started is it was a poor man's dish, right? Back in probably late 1800s, early 1900s. Burgoo essentially was what was left in the fridge, what game was out there. And by game, I mean it could be deer venison, it could be wild boar. It could be the sheep in the backyard. There are some people that say it could be roadkill. I don't know if I believe that, but whatever. But essentially, it was a poor man's dish. You think about like Great Depression, they throw it all in a pot and just cook it forever, and hopefully it would taste. They throw everything in the spice cabinet in it, and hopefully they came out with something hearty. Burgoo is a stew. Okay, the way that I describe burgoo is it's vegetable soup with a kick. That's what it is. It could have lima beans, it could have potatoes, it could have carrots, it could have corn. Usually has a couple different style of meats, usually like a chicken or a pork or in our cases sheep. That's mutton.
Mhm.
You add a bunch of fun spices into it, and it's just one of those things that um, it takes me back to probably my childhood. It's probably one of the first foods that I ate as a kid, like especially like
Mhm.
we're talking like baby because it's so tender and again hearty and what's ironic too is you have all these big pots cooking burgoo and it's like 80 degrees outside and you're eating soup outside. It's kind of unique, but it's like tradition, right? Like that's what we
Mhm.
do at the barbecue festival. You have your little styrofoam cup and you're eating your burgoo sweating. Like that's just what makes it special and historic.
Yeah, and there's a particular couple of states that like to say, burgoo's just Brunswick stew. What do you say to that?
I say they're wrong and they don't know what they're talking about. Brunswick stew is like thick and this is not that. This is uh, cooking forever over hickory wood, which brings in some of that smoke flavor into the actual soup, which that's what makes it
Mhm.
really unique. Because like if you're cooking a soup, most people don't cook soup over hickory wood, right? So
Mhm.
that adds a whole new component. Like when you taste it, it's almost like you get a little bit of that smoke. And it goes really well with bourbon, by the way. Again, how we kind of marry these two together. And so, yeah, they're wrong. Burgoo is Kentucky. It's Western Kentucky.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'll say, the first burger I ever had squirrel in it, right? That's because that's what it's
You said it.
traditionally it was. Yeah, no, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Somebody shot it out of a tree and then they put it in a stew and it was delicious. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. Um, and it sort of baffles me a little bit how few whiskey events incorporate barbecue because they do go well together with the sweet flavor profiles often, the spicy flavor profiles, the smoky flavor profile. Like these things just marry perfectly, and oftentimes you find whiskey in the sauce that goes into that.
Yep.
And I got a couple more questions that might maybe get you into trouble, maybe not. So um, ribs, should they be wet or dry?
You know, I think a lot of people, especially like in the competitions here, they're both. So they
Mhm.
they put a dry rub on them and then finish it with a sauce. Um, you know, I think it's a preference thing. I think people in Texas would throw me out of Texas, but I don't live in Texas, so I say dry rub and then put the sauce to finish it. I think you get the best of both worlds that way.
Right, so you mentioned Texas. Is brisket barbecue?
Yeah, yeah, I will say brisket's barbecue. I mean, They have their style and we have ours. It always, you see these lists, of famous barbecue places, right? You've got Kansas City and you've got Memphis and you've got the Carolinas with their mustard nonsense, and then you've got Texas with their big meat stuff. And not saying that all of them are great, but I think when you come to Owensboro, you get something a little different. That
Mhm.
I think what really sets it apart is that kind of that vinegar based, right? So it almost is tangy, if that makes sense. Like when you because you can get pulled pork here too. Again, most people get mutton, but you could get pulled pork as well, and it's also great. But again, it's that kind of tangy and that oak, and cooking it for so long and so slow. It almost just kind of gives it a little different feel than there. So I would say they know what they're doing, but we know what we're doing too.
Yeah. And so you touched on this. You say you can get pulled pork, but do you want pulled pork? You want chopped pork?
Well, depends on what restaurant you're at. So, like, if you're at Old South, they really pull their pork. Old
Mhm.
Hickory is more of a true chopped pork, right? They like grind it all up, so it's less stringy. It's
Mhm.
more trying to think of the consistency. It's almost like more sloppy Joe kind of feel because they put sauce into it as well.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it just depends. Like I said, all of them do something a little different, and I think that's what kind of makes them all a little special.
All right, and maybe one last questionable barbecue question. And I think I already know at least one of them that's eliminated. So on your sauce, you want sweet, you want vinegar, you want mustard.
What do I want?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think when I was a baby, like I was eating Old Hickory, so
Mhm.
it has to have vinegar in it. For me, but for me, it depends on the style, right? So like, I really for ribs, I don't really want a vinegar based kind of rib. Like I kind of want that traditional sweet, salty kind of deal. And same with brisket. I want a lot of smoke, and maybe I'll finish it with kind of a sugar based kind of thing. But when it comes to mutton, I want just straight like vinegar based, lots of fun spices. Like I don't want it sweet when it comes to mutton. Now, not to say you can't do that. Again, it's kind of like bourbon. When people say, "How do you drink your bourbon?" However you want.
Right.
There's no right or even if you ask master distillers, they'll tell you that. Like I can't
Mhm.
remember what distiller it was. I about fell out of my chair, but he said, sometimes I like my bourbon with a little Coke, and I almost fell out of my seat. I'm like, "Are you allowed to do that?" But again, barbecue's the same way. Eat it how you want to eat it, and drink bourbon how you want to drink it. One note that I forgot, I failed to mention that makes this a little unique on the bourbon side. One is I know we're gonna have at least one distillery that's gonna be their world debut of their bourbon, and that is Western Kentucky Distilling Company down in Beaver Dam,
Nice.
in Ohio County. They're literally going to be debuting their bourbon. So that's really exciting. I don't know what their plans are to actually put it on the market. I think they're probably still a ways away from that, but it'll
Mhm.
be the first time that people ever get to try it. So that's a really big deal. Um, I may have gotten to try it already, like a couple weeks ago, and I'm telling you, special.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing I would tell people is what makes our event unique is that not only do you get to taste all these bourbons, several of the distilleries, if they have their DSP license, their DSP number, they also will sell you bottles. And there are some rare bottles, okay, that you can purchase that you're not going to see on a shelf. So not only do you get to taste these, but several of the distilleries do sell their bottles at their booth, and that makes it pretty
Mhm.
unique. Last year, in our first year, we decided to do that. The distilleries were all really happy, especially some of the craft distilleries. I mean, you're going to have big distilleries like Heaven Hill, like Four Roses, like Michter's, but you're also going to have some of these small distilleries you've never heard of. And we do that intentionally because, we want people to try all kinds of different things. We even let
Mhm.
a couple of Indiana distilleries in, only the good ones. And we do. We have some like Hard Truth. I don't know if you've ever had any of their stuff.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Uh,
Phenomenal.
we try to pay homage to bourbon around the area. Of course, Kentucky
Mhm.
first, always. But the fact that you do get to try some of these from other people and actually get to purchase their bottle that you're not going to see in a liquor store also kind of makes it special.
Yeah, and that it makes complete sense. And maybe we're running up on time, but several other events do this. Do you see maybe the future of this event? You guys having specific single barrels that are picked for the event? And I know Romp does that whenever you have
Yeah.
that festival. Do you see that happening for this event?
Yeah, I think so. I actually think that a couple distilleries, and again, it's their story to tell, not mine, are going to have a single barrel pick specifically for that VIP hour, that 3 to 4 hour, where you get to taste something a little special. Not to say you're not going to get to taste some good stuff during the actual general
Mhm.
admission, but I do think a couple of distilleries have like a barbecue and barrel picked out for it. Whether they'll sell that to you, again, that's their story. That's up to them. And I guess you'll just have to come and wait and see.
Yeah, and then maybe a last couple of points. So, we've talked about tickets, and I'll put the links in here to make sure people have an opportunity to get that, whether it be on YouTube or in the show notes on the audio podcast. Um, h- how do I get around during the event? Because you're going to have a lot of the downtown area blocked out. Is there, street parking, public parking, pay parking? How do I get around?
Couple different ways. The number one way for me, if I was wanting to attend this event, is I would stay at the Hampton or the Holiday downtown. That way, you park your car. Parking, there's no charge to park in those parking lots if you're staying there. Then you can walk pretty much everywhere. If you go to the Green River dinner on Friday, you can. It's a quick little Uber or Lyft ride to Green
Mhm.
River and back. I mean, it's literally like a 4 minute drive from the downtown. So that would be my number one way. And there are some rooms left at the Hampton Holiday, not very many, but there are
Mhm.
some. That would be my number one way because then you don't have to deal with parking. There are parking garages around downtown Owensboro. There are two main ones that you could park in. There is also a lot of nonprofits and churches do like a pay to park, like and it's reasonable. It's like $5 or $10 to park in the church parking lot. So that would be another way that you could do it. If you're local, again, you can take an Uber or Lyft downtown. Wait times are going to be you're going to see surge pricing, but everything once you get downtown, you literally can walk to everything, which is also really nice. And there are also great restaurants downtown too that if I don't want to eat barbecue all weekend, you can walk to one of those local restaurants and do something there. But again, I think when you get downtown, you have that sweet smell and that
Mhm.
spicy smell of hickory everywhere. You're gonna want to pick the barbecue.
Yeah, and then you said this just a second ago, Uber or Lyft. What is the presence of Uber or Lyft as far as, the volume of them? Because I know there's another I'm not gonna say anything specifically, but there's another city in Kentucky that has festival type events there, and usually there's, like, 2 Uber drivers and 1 Lyft driver for the entire city, right? Which is problematic when you have a event with, a couple thousand people at it. So,
Yeah.
what is
Well,
that like? Is it gonna be, are there more than 3 cars?
yeah, I would tell yes. So what you have to understand is and some people might not know this, especially if they're coming from somewhere else. Owensboro is the fourth largest city in Kentucky. All right, we've got
Mhm.
100,000 people when you include the county, and we are the hub for several of the areas around here that doesn't include that population. Right, so several of the counties that surround us. Owensboro is where they go for commerce, right? Where they go to eat, where they go to shop. So you have all of that population. I just for just my knowledge, I just pulled up Lyft. Okay, it is 10:30 on a Thursday, and I just want to see how many drivers there are at 10:30 on a Thursday. Right now, there are 5 drivers. This is real time. I'm not making this up. There are 5 cars all around me, and that's just in the downtown area. Okay,
Mhm.
so you should be able to. Are you going to have to wait a little longer? You have to pay a little
Yeah.
bit more. Of course you are. But also, our Lyft and Uber drivers know that we are an event city, and they know that they can make the most money when there are events going on, right?
Yeah.
So there will be where there'll be more people and more need for it, there will also be more supply for it.
Drivers.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you should be able to get an Uber or a Lyft that weekend. Again, you just might want to adjust your times a little bit because it will take a little longer because there will be so many people that want to get downtown.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. If there's an event happening, Uber or Lyft is gonna be longer. That just is what it is. You got several thousand people clustered in one
Sure.
space.
Yeah, and
Um,
again, that was just Lyft. I'm sure if I was
yeah.
switched over to Uber, so there's probably again at 10:30 on a Thursday, you probably have 8 or 10 drivers just driving around looking to pick somebody up. So when you
Yeah.
have an event like that during prime time, obviously that number increases.
Yeah, and that's all super helpful. Dave, I do wanna thank you for the time that you've given me today. Time is the thing you can't ever recreate any of, and so,
No problem.
people that are willing to give it away, I wanna be appreciative of it. Um, Thanks for coming on. I'll like I said, I'll post everything I can about it, but let's do one last recap. Where can you go to get tickets? Where can you go to get information? Is there an email list? All of those things.
Sure. Best place to go is barbecueandbarrels.com, specifically /bourbon. If you want to purchase some of those bourbon tickets, you get on there and it lists all the distilleries that are signed up. And then it also has the different packages and different, ticket options. So barbecueandbarrels.com is the best place. There's a Facebook page and an Instagram page, Barbecue and Barrels. You can find the latest information of, what barbecue vendors are in, what distilleries have they added, what is the schedule of performances. Like I said, you get a free Chris Janson concert with this. Buy me a boat, pour me a drink. I mean, you've heard these songs. These are major songs on the radio that you'll get to enjoy on Saturday night as well. Tickets again are for Smoke and Oak on Thursday, $350. You call Laura directly to book those. Friday night, Green River Distilling Company. I believe the dinner is from like 6 to 8. Tickets are, I think, $130, and again, that's a 4-course dinner, 4 cocktails. On Saturday, things will start to kick off around 10 with the car show, backyard cook-off. Bourbon events start around 2 o'clock with classes, 3 VIP hour, 4 to 6-year-old mission, and then again after that, there are concerts all throughout the downtown, specifically the big one in front of the convention center with Chris Janson. Again, the dates are May 10th and 11th for that Friday and Saturday Mother's Day weekend.
Thanks for the recap on that. And once again, thanks for your time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you are consuming this on. Leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using Embellish Pod and give me a follow, and you can keep up what's going on here. I can also be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, contact details, and more. Thanks for stopping by.